Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast today. And this is Coach Eric Johnson, the brand.
And this is Coach Aaron Thigpen-Thesaurus. Good morning, everyone. We've got a good one today. This is long time overdue. We've got one of our hometown athletes here. He's been an athlete of mine since you were 16. I looked that up today and I was like, man, 16. Been so long, dude.
I think it's like 15 years now, like half my life.
Wow. Something else. But the ever-present Robert Stevenson, Major League pitcher, now for the Angels. And it's great to have Robert here. I can't say too much about this guy, even though now it seems like I'm lost for words. But this guy is just something else. I mean, if there's one word to describe you, Robert, it's been consistent. I mean, you had just been consistent. And I think that's one of the overriding themes to your success. And it's actually something I've got some questions about and want to talk about in the day's podcast. But Robert was a first-round draft pick by the Cincinnati Reds. You've been to a few teams, but he's now settled in and signed with the Angels just as of last week. And you're coming off a really hot season from last year, last half, where, I was reading you were top 5 or leading in quite a few categories. And it's just amazing to kind of see, hey, your growth from when you were just a high school kid coming in here. Rob Bruno sent you over to me and seeing you grown as an athlete, as a man, and you're one of Game Speed's greatest stories, man.
Thank you.
EJ, do you want to start off with something? I've got quite a few things I want to cover with this young man. But
yeah, it's it's a pleasure to watch. I tell everybody out there, it's a pleasure to watch Robert work out when he comes back after the season, the consistency he has. And, that it factor we talk about Aaron all the time, he has the it factor. When he comes in, he goes to work and it's a pleasure to watch. It brings back a lot of memories of Aaron, probably when you and I were training, but you could see the difference that he brings to the gym when he's in there. We see a few guys that try to have his qualities and watch him. So Robert, continued success. I'm going to say this, my first question to you, man. And, I think Aaron's got tons of them. I'm gonna get to this heavy part because I've watched your career since you came to Aaron, and I knew about you running EJ Sports. I knew about you with Rob Bruno, but the whole thing is, what clicked for you last year? I think last year was I followed your career. I'm a fan, you know that. But what clicked for you to really, 180 this thing, because you became the top right-handed reliever in the free agent market. And I think there's something to be said about what you changed mindset or what you did physically to get yourself in a really, really great place for this offseason to sign this contract with the Angels. So can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So I think part of it was a little bit of a mechanical tweak to my slider, which is my primary pitch. But a big part of it too was it was a combination of things. But it was having a staff that trusted in me and kind of was able to make me feel confident myself. And I think when you have everything comes together like that, and you can go out and every single time that regardless of how things go, you have a staff that believes in you. You have you're able to believe in yourself. It's a different feeling. And I think that you can build a lot more momentum like that than, say like you've got a coaching staff that kind of trusts you when you're doing well. And then, when things aren't going well, they don't trust you. And it's like, that can start to really affect you. I think, so something like that, like I said, it builds confidence over time. And the more you can build, your confidence in yourself, then the easier it is to have success.
I think that's great because, I think about all the coaching clinics that Ron Wotus, the Giants, longest tenured coaching member of the San Francisco Giants history and their tenure of their coaching staff. And we did coaching clinics together. And one thing he said to me, and I think this is really valuable, he says, even at the major league level, players need confidence, and you need to believe in them, and you gotta trust them when they're good or bad, but you have to believe in them. And it goes back to a saying that he says, would you like to go to a job where you enjoy it and you love the environment, or would you like to go to a job that you don't like the environment and you don't like what's going on? And I think you're a testament to that if a staff believes in you, the coaches and the front office, all those people believe in you, it's a lot easier to be happier going to the workplace and able to do your job better because you like what you're doing, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I've played for teams where things went sideways and you could just feel things change. And, it's like, if a fan base doesn't believe in you, it's one thing, I'll live without it. If you go on the road and you get booed, it doesn't matter. If whatever happens with the fan base, I don't know. For me, it's not as important as how much the people behind me are invested. And so, when those people that I'm with every single day are invested in me and fully invested, that's when you can, like I said, you can build a lot more confidence that way. And I think that's a super important thing to have.
Awesome. Good stuff right there, Aaron. Good stuff.
And I know we've talked about this before, where it's been kind of a situation where you've been in good environments and then bad environments, and it's kind of
right.
Worked, back and forth. But I want to rewind just to the beginning and kind of see how you've also come to this point as well, because obviously there's been a lot of physical and a lot of mental growth and emotional growth in terms of you as an athlete and just handling these things. So it's kind of a combo question is, how did you kind of handle those setbacks, but how have you changed as an athlete from being that fresh kid going in and but first round draft pick to now? So what have you done personally to kind of navigate that? Because we've got a lot of young athletes who go through that every day. They go through those times where they may not be confident in their abilities or the people around them. And EJ said this all the time. Baseball is a game of failure. So you've got to know how to handle failure. And of course, you've had that over the course of your career as well as the successes. But how did you handle those successes and failures? Maybe first, what was your approach as a young athlete, but as you've matured and evolved, how did you start to handle those same issues?
I think, when I first got into pro ball, I came in with big eyes and excitement. And, obviously I came in, I wanted to do anything that anyone wanted me to do. If they had ideas, they would bounce, or they would suggest them, and I would try everything. And it took time for me to finally eliminate things that weren't working. And, I still, even last off season, was, experimenting with things. And it was just hard when you're constantly you're trying to listen to too many voices at the same time, because everyone is going to give you advice, and it's hard to pick and choose what's important for you. And so I think it's hard to decipher what works for you personally. And once I was able to figure out what worked for me and get a routine in place, I think that helped a lot. Like I said, if you're trying too much all the time and you're constantly changing things, it's hard to be consistent with what you're doing. And I think that was a problem for me early on. And I didn't realize it at the time. But now I feel like I have a lot better routine than I did when I was younger. And I think part of it came with the failure too. And I had to have failure to be able to see what works and what doesn't work. And, over time, it was easier for me to build that routine. I'm trying to think, what was the other part of the question?
No, you've basically answered it. And it's funny because he's probably touched on 5 or 6 podcasts that we've done. The power of no. And knowing what you really want. And that comes with growth and comes with knowing yourself and confidence. Too many cooks in the kitchen. Yourself. Those are all at least 3 that come to mind that you basically related to in your answer. So I think that was a great response.
Yeah, well, actually, I got a little bit more to add to it too. And I think obviously when you fail, it can be challenging. And I think there was definitely times in my career where I could have seen if things continued the way they were going, I could have been out of this game. But I think the thing that helped me the most was just having a vision of what my future looked like. And I feel like I envisioned myself playing 10 years in the big leagues. That was the minimum I want. I want to be in this game for 10 years at the least. And I think that if I don't have that vision, it gets hard to show up every day when things aren't going well. And you just have to keep showing up every single day and at least put in the work to try to get you to where you want to be.
Man, Robert, Aaron, this is really funny because you and I talk about these things all constantly in the gym, but showing up every day, going to work, no matter what the circumstances are. I think if any young athlete or anybody's out there listening today, remember what he said about showing up and going to work every day, no matter what the circumstances are, because you know what? I think within you find that confidence, but you find out who you really are. You find that goal and that vision you said. I think that was the key word I picked on you. Like, we had this vision, 10-year career, and Aaron and I talked about this 10-year career thing. And it just, it resonates in what you say. So having a goal and a vision, and that's one thing we talked about in one of our podcasts, is goals, setting goals and having a plan. Two things that we always reiterate, and you're a testament to that. And it's good to hear, because consistency is hard in life, let alone in baseball. And I think that's a big thing, Aaron. And I know you and I talk about this constantly.
I mean, I always talk about having that North Star, that one point that you always keep your eyes on, regardless of which direction your path goes. You're always focusing on going in that direction towards that North Star. So no, that's definitely, served you well. Now, I do have another question, because again, I'm always trying to squeeze you for what can our younger athletes learn from your experience? I mean, I just think that's the most valuable thing for our listeners and the guys in the gym. I'm always kind of pushing them. Hey, go talk to Robert. Go ask him a question. Because you're a quiet guy, but you're actually really approachable, and you're willing to give, information. I love that about you. You don't big league anybody. You don't say, I don't want to be bothered. And I just really admire that about you. And I'm so grateful to have you in the gym just for that aspect, because you're a great example. So what would be your advice for middle school and high school baseball players or athletes in general? What were some of the things obviously that you didn't know, but hey man, if I could be, sixth grade Robert Stevenson, what would I have done differently?
Well, the first thing I want to touch on, I want to go back to the consistency thing a little bit. And because I think, sometimes people get the misconception, like, you need to give 100% every single day. Sometimes you're not going to have 100% in the tank. And so I think the best philosophy that I've heard is give 100% of what you have that day. And some days that might be 70%. Some days it might be 100%, but give 100% of what you have that day. Because it's going to be hard to show up every day if you're trying to put in more than you have in the tank. You know what I mean? I think that's the easiest way to navigate the consistency aspect of it, is to just show up with what you have that day and give what you have. And if you just, like I said, if you show up and you give what you have, you're always going to find a way to get at least a little bit better every single day. And I think that was one of the things that probably could have helped me when I was younger. Especially, I think the other thing that helped me out when I was younger too was trying to, you go in the gym, where you go on your team and you see who works the hardest and see if you can outwork them. I think that was a good thing for me when I was starting out some of those power throwing classes that we did. I ended up jumping in with an older group, and it was different there with older kids there, and I think having just a different group of guys, with a different workout output than I had already, kind of challenged me to work a little bit harder. And I think obviously for me now it's harder because I'm pretty much in there by myself. But if you've got a group of people that you're working with, it's always a lot easier to push yourself when you have some competition or some motivation to look around.
Iron sharpens iron. Is that?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
But you've navigated something that I talk to a lot of athletes about who aspire to be professional athletes is it's probably the most lonely road you're going to travel.
It really is. Yeah.
Because it's hard, it's just going to be hard to surround yourself with like-minded, like-talented, athletes. At a certain point, there's just so many degrees of separation between you and the rest of the athletic population. It gets harder and harder to find those people. And you've been able to keep yourself motivated and consistent throughout that whole process. So I think that's a testament to, like you said, your ability to keep your eye on that goal and say, I'm going to go for it regardless of who's along for the ride with me.
Yeah, and I think, that's been one of the more challenging things just even the last few years, is the number of players that I've played with starts to drop off. And then, the people, especially when I'm home in the off-season training, it just, the number of people that I'm able to train with gets smaller and smaller every year. And so it becomes more of a, self-discipline than anything else.
Now, have you found that actually you found out more about yourself as an athlete through that process? Because that isolation allows you to kind of be more inside your own head and figure out who you are as an athlete. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I think trying to train on my own makes things so much harder. And, like I said, it goes back to the self-discipline. It's when you've got adrenaline going when you're, working with somebody or competing against somebody, but when there's no adrenaline there, it makes things so much harder to try to find the motivation to do it all by yourself. And I think that was one of the things that I had to figure out just the last few years, of find a way to keep myself motivated, just so that way I could come in every day and put in the work that I need to put in.
Yeah, it's pretty neat, and I think about that. It reminds me, for the general public out there, there's only 780 of these elite ball players in the world. So just so the world knows that, 780 ball players are able to put on a Major League Baseball uniform consistently in a year. 26 guys per roster, 30 teams. So that's one thing. What motivates him, I think, and Robert, let me just kind of go back into some, and I really can relate to what you're saying, because when you get to that stage where you're trying to find guys to work out with, I remember when I was at that point in the major leagues, it's like no one. It was like myself and another guy, and we would always get together and work out. But what motivates you, I see this inner drive. You're so introspective what you're training. I think Aaron's done an outstanding job with you guys collaborating, because I think you can bounce ideas off him and you guys talk between each other, and it's a collaboration. And I think a lot of people need to understand it out there. When you have an elite athlete like yourself, there's collaboration with a lot of people, but you trust Aaron. You've been with him for, 15 years, and you value what he has to say because of his experience and what he's done. And I think being kind of connected with yourself mentally helps you get where you need to be, and I see that, and I can relate to that. And I think that draws a lot of the better athletes in the gym, like a couple of guys that Aaron and I have trained together. We can see that. And I think, that's awesome to see it live.
I've got one last question. And again, I always like to leave the listeners with something useful for them. What are the top 3 things a developing pitcher should know, whether mental or physical? It doesn't have to be the top 3, but what are 3 helpful things that you think some of these younger athletes, these up and coming athletes? Again, I have other kids in the gym, and they're kind of intimidated to ask you these questions. So I'm trying to help them out here and pick your brain for them. But what would be some of the things that you might want to impart to some of these younger athletes?
Well, one of the first things I'll probably say is to ask questions. I think it was hard for me when I was younger. I like you said, I'm not the most outgoing person, and so it was hard for me to want to approach people when I was younger about asking questions. But I think that that's the best way to get information, is to ask questions. Talk to people who've been there, talk to your coaches, talk to, and just try to get as much information as possible. And then you can take that information, sift through it, and figure out what's helpful for you. But having the information is important as anything. And then I think once you have that information, you take it, and then that's how you create your routine. I think the routine is probably as important as anything in this game for me. I think if you don't have a routine, then you don't have, it's hard to find what your purpose is for the day. So I think that having the routine will help you just create better habits. And, once you can set a goal and have that, the end goal, you can use that routine to get there a lot easier. Kind of like a roadmap. Oh, and then the other thing I'll go back to is confidence. Obviously everyone says you need to have confidence in yourself, but it really is true. If you don't have confidence in yourself, and having a group of people that can help you build confidence in yourself, then I don't know. It's even if you throw the exact same pitch, the exact same spot, when you throw it with intent, it makes such a difference. And I don't know how to explain it, but it really does. So finding a way to build confidence and trusting yourself is probably as important as anything else. Also,
yeah, I want to ask this question: who do you think helped you, was influential in your major league career at the major league level that really has had an impact on your career so far, you feel, at that level? Because you have these elite coaches that have a lot of things, or have people that talk to you, but who are some of the people, I shouldn't say only person, but who are some of the people that you feel have helped you along the way at that level of helping you?
And it's hard because I've had so many people along the way, and it's a combination. But like last year for me, having Kyle Snyder in Tampa was amazing. He was the pitching coach in Tampa, and he was a big reason of why I turned my career. And like I said, having a coaching staff, a guy like him that would give me information and then tell me to trust it. They would tell us things like, I'll say, for example, they would say the first pitch of an at bat, if you can throw a strike, hitters only get a hit 5% of the time. And so then they would go back to that and be like, this is what we believe in because there's solid numbers to prove this, and it'll prove itself over time. There was things like that it helped you to build confidence, because they would show you something, and then it was seeing that in person or seeing it come true. So I don't know. He was a pretty big reason why things turned around last year. But I've had a lot of people over the years that have helped. It's just a recent one that comes to mind.
That's cool stuff. Just to hear about that. I know the past 2 years you've been working on this pitch, and I'm not going to divulge because that is your secret. But you've been doing this very well, and I've seen you work on this pitch, and it kind of perfected it. And I think a lot of technology and hitters are taught to swing up in the zone and stuff like that. But I've seen you perfect this, and I know how hard you worked at this particular pitch and location. I'm not going to divulge that because that's part of your success. Let them figure it. But how long did it take you to perfect, you felt, or have control of this pitch to where you think it could be a game changer for you as it was? How long did it take you to get your feel for it?
Yeah, so slider when I was in high school, and then I didn't throw it when I got to pro ball either. And when I got to the big leagues, I was a starter and just didn't have any success when I was starting. And they told me, you're going to move to the bullpen. And the year that they moved me to the bullpen, that was when they had me work on a slider, and they, altered my curveball a little bit, changed the grip. And that first year I started throwing a slider, I had a lot more success. And over the years, it's been relatively the same, and I've always had better luck with that pitch, just because I feel like for me, I've been able to spin the ball. Sometimes some people are able to spin the ball better than others, and it's just kind of how you throw it. This related to the way you release the ball, your arm slot, everything. But up until last year, it hadn't really improved at all, and then I made an adjustment on it last year that made it as good as it's ever been. So that's 6 years later after throwing the pitch that I made an adjustment, and it completely changed.
Yeah, and I wanted to hear that story a little bit so I could tell the listeners out there that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint all the time, and sometimes you have to really work at your craft to master it. So that was the point I wanted to make, Aaron. Before we closed out everything, is the fact that it's a journey in this, and you evolve as an athlete. So that's what I got for you, Aaron, right there.
I'd just like to thank Robert for coming out today and talking with us and dropping some knowledge and telling us about your experience, man. We'll be watching you. I'm glad to see that you're in California here. So
thank you. Yeah, me too.
That'll be great, and wish you continued success, and I'll see you in the gym later today.
All right.
Well, thanks for joining us today, everyone. This is Coach EJ, the brand.
And this is Coach Aaron, the source. We'll see you.